Okay. So we will call this regular city council meeting for June 25th, 2024 to order at 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Moline?
Here.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Here.
Mayor Carrington?
Here.
Councilmember Tudor?
Here.
Councilmember Best?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti?
Here.
Councilmember Cooper?
Present.
Okay, unanimous.
All right, if everyone could stand, and Travis, can I ask you to lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next is approval of the agenda, which includes the minutes from our previous meeting, June 11th. What's the wishes of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, you want to call the roll, please?
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Tudor?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Moline?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right. Next, we have communications and appearances. I think I saw Gary and Laura in the audience. Do you guys want to come present to us the Palmer Library Project update? Oh, we need a steal a chair.
Snapper up there.
Okay. Josh, do we think the microphone's still on, or? Okay. And there's a zapper there too, the push button for doing the PowerPoint. Welcome.
Thank you. Does this need to be turned on? Or?
You just got to get really close.
How's that?
Yeah. A little better.
Okay.
He's going to see if the display's on. Yeah, you have to be really close. You have to really like the microphone.
Okay, I'll talk louder.
Okay.
All right. Good evening. My name is Gary Wolf. I'm here with Laura Reed, and we're pleased to come here and update you on the Palmer Library progress that we've made. We've met with the library committee several times over the last couple of months. We've updated the building program, the space plan, and did some more work on the exterior elevation. Hopefully we've got it to a point where we can reach some consensus where we can move the project forward. So instead of presenting the library update plan right now, I thought we would take you through a little bit of the process that we went through going through this, because it's been, you know, a little more difficult coming up with a library plan than, well, not the plan, but actually the aesthetic of it, because, see, does this work? There's a button on the side, make sure it's on. Ah, there we go. Okay, so what we've learned is that everybody has a different idea of what makes Palmer. Some people think of this downtown sort of Midwest town with its quaint Main Street and coffee shops as what they like about Palmer. Other people look at the colony era and they are drawn to the colony project and the planned community and the buildings that go along with that. And both of those two aesthetics are quite different, and they're quite hard to reconcile together. One thing about the colony project is it's about one of 100 different planned communities that was completed during the New Deal to both give struggling families some hope and new opportunities, as well as provide some work work for people who didn't have any work. And so the buildings are quite agrarian. They're kind of ubiquitous across the nation. They're very simple to construct so that folks with limited skill sets could help construct them. And they provided some great opportunity and made a great community here in Palmer. And I think Palmer is one of the few surviving communities that actually became a town. The plan, as we know, was set up with a common surrounded by a residential district, some civic buildings off to the east, an industrial complex, and then to the west, the commercial district was established by the entrepreneurs to help support the community. In terms of architecturally speaking, the agrarian forms were, as I said, very, very simple, gabled or hip-shaped buildings. They were kind of long and narrow because they were all trussed, and the maximum length of a truss is about 60 feet. And they, they weren't very ornate. They were very simple, and they were just meant to get a job done in an economical fashion, and then the community sprung up from there. And so you ended up with these agrarian forms, and they were never meant to be necessarily sort of an architectural capstone, but they've kind of become that for many in Palmer. The entrepreneurs made these sort of western false front store, as they'd done in many frontier towns across the West when they built. There was a definite trend to create commercial buildings that looked like commercial buildings with the flat roofs, and that was kind of copying the commercial districts on the East Coast when people were moving west, and that's what we saw was developed in Palmer. And we can see this through the photographic evidence, although all the people who developed them are gone. One of the more interesting buildings that we like was the Palmer Library, and we've shared this before. It's a very unique building, painted bright red, had a very large window in it, and these were all deliberate choices, and we wanted to bring some of these ideas in for the new library. They wanted a nice space to read books and have a unique community center. The next phase of development in Palmer happened when, after a few fires in downtown, destroyed some of the earlier buildings, and the businessmen had a definite choice of which way they wanted to go. And it was clear they didn't look backwards when they were developing Palmer. They didn't look east at the agrarian building forms and say, we want to copy that. They said, this new modernist era was coming in, and it was known as the Bauhaus, and it came over to the United States shortly before World War II, and it was characteristic of some simple forms, clean lines, flat roofs, spans of glass, usually concrete and steel, and it fit pretty well with the sort of aesthetic that the developers of Palmer wanted. And you can kind of see these bands of glass and the simple forms, flat roofs, are reminiscent of some of the buildings you start to see developed in Palmer. Kozlowski's, Rexall Drugs, you can see kind of the larger windows, the capacity to build larger pieces of glass and get them up here without breakage was becoming more prevalent. The old Selleck building, you can see the horizontal lines in the glass block. The corner windows where the concrete allowed windows to actually wrap the corner instead of being structural members. And from gas stations to the post office to the Oldsmobile dealership, MEA has a very modernist look to it. And that Swanson School in the bottom, it's all completely glass, a lot of horizontal elements with some strong verticals. The high school, again, a lot of glass blocks, sweeping horizontal lines. The agricultural department for UAF another early example. And finally, the Palmer Library that replaced the red building again shows these modern characteristics. So I think what we were looking at when we were looking at the design of the library is that Palmer definitely had a characteristic, and the characteristic that the people developing Palmer looked at was they were looking forward. They looked at this modernist aesthetic, and it predominantly, in fact, without exception, as I can tell, they followed that direction rather than looking back to the New Deal era project. So we kind of took that as a cue as we move forward with the design. You wonder how come Palmer doesn't look like this, you don't see this. Shortly at the end of 1960, in the 70s and 80s, America lost its mind when it came to the arts, and you can see what happened to cars and product design in buildings. And the nice, sort of solid modernist architecture got covered up into kind of these boxy shapes. That's the Swanson School and the high school. DNA turned into kind of a little storefront building. The agriculture department pretty much stayed the same. The post office is all kind of boxed out. The city hall got the little mushroom cap on it, and so you can't see much on that. And the same thing happened with MEA. There's been a couple of developers, Richard Streichen and Jeff Johnson, who've worked to try to bring back some of the characteristics of Palmer with the long sort of bands of glass and sweeping forms, and kind of redoing some of the existing buildings. So anyway, with that sort of background, Laura will kind of update you on the design.
Thank you, Gary. So with all of that background, we were trying to give an overview of where we were starting with trying to design this library and integrate these two very disparate styles into one cohesive design that everyone is happy with, because we've had lots of input from both sides of this camp who see Palmer in very different ways, and so we're trying very hard to meld these two things together. And the iteration that we're showing today is slightly different than what you saw last time, but it's still just a snapshot in time. We're not necessarily saying this is the final design. It's just where we are today. And we're hopeful that it's a little bit closer to what this council was hoping to see. So we look forward to all of your feedback and comments as we move forward. So over the last few months, we've met with the Library Design Committee several times, trying to decide on the direction of this design process, and also trying to bring the building into the $15 million project budget. So what you see here is an update of the program where we've shaved 2,000 square feet off of the building. As you can see, we've pulled square footage out of all of the different areas. So we've maintained most of the program elements, with the exception of a few of the small controversial pieces. But everything is generally still here that we had at the previous iteration, if not just a slightly bit smaller. So in plan, you can see here on the right, the site plan is more or less unchanged. So we still have this very square, efficient, compact plan that sits generally in the center of that northern part of the far side of the quad. And the idea, just to remind you all of how we placed this building where we did, it was decided during the design process that maintaining that existing parking lot in its current form, and then creating a better access point to that parking lot for the elderly patrons, was high on the priority list. So we're also maintaining that visual connection through and into the quad from Evergreen. So a little bit zoomed in, you can see the plan is largely unchanged with squeezing the square footage down. We've moved a few things around, but it's more or less what you saw at the previous iteration. We still have capacity for 60 people in the large meeting room. And I think we only had to take out 10% of the book stacks. So as far as the exterior design modifications, so we had several comments over the last bit to the effect that we were leaning a little bit too contemporary, too modern, and there was a desire to pull things back towards that 1930s New Deal era aesthetic. And so in this view from Evergreen, you can see we've extended that gable form from the quad side of the building through to become a prominent feature on this facade as well. Also notice we're maintaining these strong horizontal elements with the canopies. We've brought this horizontal wood rain screen around the building to become one of the cohesive elements, trying to pull all of these various types of architecture together into one cohesive concept. Notice the punched openings and the multi-paned glass. So as we move around to the parking lot side, we've adjusted this facade a bit to become a little bit more welcoming for the main entry. So rather than moving through a portal, you're now moving into that two-story glazing, which I'm seeing now this image could have been brightened up a bit. I apologize for how dark it is, but we've maintained, we're not showing any of the interior spaces today because we've largely maintained the same design intent of trying to create multiple different qualities of space within the building. So we have both the intimate and cozy type spaces alongside the larger, magnificent mountain view, two-story, light-filled spaces. So that is still the design intent, and we're trying to follow that through. This image here really helps you appreciate how the two-story volume on the other side breaks away into becoming more predominantly a one-story on the quad side to help connect with that outdoor public space. So the exterior gathering space really extends onto the roof deck of the library. That roof deck becomes a potential for future expansion if need be, so the footprint could be unchanged and we could add square footage onto that second story in the future. And that could happen both on both of these one-story volumes that you see in this view. Also predominantly on this side, we've maintained that large gable form. Around on the back, we've continued that horizontal wood rain screen, extending it out to become the screening devices for both the rooftop units as well as the protection for that loading zone. We've maintained the drive-through book drop as well as the walk-up book drop. And showing this little image on the bottom corner, through all of these, we were trying to help show the influences. So you can kind of see this. This site is really meant to to provide another downtown street side to our town, because right now we just have a one-sided downtown. So we're really trying to both relate to that agrarian architecture and also help provide another side to our downtown. So next steps. Like I said before, this is an very iterative, fluid process. So I would envision that we will hear comments from you all today and try to incorporate those. And we're also very much looking at furthering this effort of integrating these two very different styles together more cohesively. And we will also be looking to bring some of the playful and potentially colorful character that we had on that last iteration back into the scheme in some small way without it being too overpowering or too offensive, I suppose is a good word. So maybe potentially just around the children's area or in small panels that are integrated throughout. So that'll be the next step.
And so the last two things we want to talk about is the budget and the schedule. The budget's very important. We keep that front and center all the time. I know there's been some discussion about the budget and what this will cost. We just got a project ready for bidding, the new Gateway Visitor Center. It's about half the size of the library. We got estimates back from the estimator. It's a wood frame building, but it's quite simple, but similar in sort of the amount of spaces and type of spaces, and that there's some big open spaces, some classroom spaces, and then some offices, and then some utility spaces. That building, it appears as though it's coming in at $700 a square foot. It's wood frame. This is a library. It's bigger. It's steel frame. There's going to be some economy of scale, but we're still expecting somewhere between $700 and $750 a square foot. We think that's a solid number. The design is going to have to react to that number. We cut 2,000 square feet out of it to help align with that $15 million budget. But we're just kind of working through that. But I wanted to let you know that the $700, $750 number is pretty solid based on what we got back with the most recent estimate. Finally, the schedule.
Oh, and to add on to what Gary was just describing, this building that we were using as a comparison is similarly very simple, and it doesn't include any extravagant or expensive systems. So we're looking at approaching the library in the same way. So I know we've heard comments from various people to the effect that we should be able to build for a lot cheaper, and if anybody is willing to come out and bid for a lesser amount of money, please do. That would be great. But as far as schedule goes, as you can see on the top, we've had to adjust a bit based on this design schedule changing. So we're still anticipating a 15-month construction timeline from the bid date. So we're expecting a completion date of July 2026, and that would be dependent on the demolition occurring simultaneous to the remainder of the design. So it could happen during any of that time period where you see the dashed arrow there in the middle. And with that, thank you all for your time, and we welcome any feedback or comments, and thank you.
Any Councilman Cooper?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess what I heard is we're reducing the size of the building because of the budget, and the council had originally agreed to 20,000 square feet. So that is, I guess, is the driving force is the $15 million. What you're saying?
That you won't be able to cut $5 million off of it with finishes. So the only real solution is to make the building smaller.
Right. And then another question I have, there's no elevation drawings in here, and what I see is the one end of the building has a gabled roof, peak roof, and it looks like it empties onto a flat roof. That was a problem that we had in the last library. I'm a little concerned about how do we get the snow off the flat roof. I know it's going to be built to withstand a lot of snow load, but that is a concern I have.
Okay, so we're planning on having a steel building. Codes have changed significantly since 1984, or 82, I guess it's the 82 code iteration. That glue lam ripped in half.
Right.
We're not going to have steel beams ripping in half with the weight of snow. Typically on gabled roofs, you don't want to have them near public areas because they slide ice and snow off them. So you either have to provide landscaped areas for them to come down on or flat areas. And so very often when sloped roofs are required, that's how they're dealt with one way or the other. So, we absolutely will not be ignoring that. We understand the concern, and it's, front and center on this project.
Thank you.
Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you guys for a very well done presentation. Appreciate it. On the demolition piece, we do a line that extends out from mid-October 24 to potentially the end of February 25. Are you saying it's going to take a month to do demolition, but it has to be somewhere in that window? Or are you saying it can take anywhere from mid-October till the end of February of the next year?
We're saying that we anticipate the demolition to be completed before this goes out to bid, so that the contractors aren't bidding demolition into the project. Anywhere,
In that window.
any time along that line, they can do that.
Thank you.
Councilman Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to start out by saying I just love hearing how your brain works with this, because I can tell something's brutalist, but that's about the extent of my architectural knowledge. So seeing you go through the old buildings and identifying the type of architectural language is it's amazing. So I just want to say thank you for the hard work you put into this. And I just want to say I really do appreciate you looking at this from a cost perspective. That was kind of what I was harping on earlier, was just concerned about the repayment on this. And it looks like you're saving us about $1.5 million, which is very appreciative. My question is, I remember the original design had some outdoor areas, if memory serves, on the roof. I'm assuming, is that gone on this iteration?
No, that's still there.
Oh, it is still there. Okay.
Yeah, it is reduced in size a bit with the overall reduction, but yes, it's still there.
Laura, is the plan still to make like was that community garden kind of space? Is that still?
We had discussed that. It came up in some of the community outreach days. There was lots of interest in doing that. I think there's been a concern in who would manage that or maintain it, and so I think that's still a question on. It's probably going to come up more. It will be more up to the library as far as what they want their programming to be and how that will be managed. But that has been floating around as one idea.
And one of the concerns I heard from members of the community was just about the kind of the youth teen room downstairs. And just to make sure I understand this right, that's going to be like fully glassed all around, or just that one partition?
So all of the interior spaces, whether it's meeting rooms, the teen area, the computer room, we're intending for them all to have the interior glazing so you can see through, and so the library staff can have a visual into all of those spaces.
Yeah.
So some of them it's just one wall, some of them it's two sides. It just depends on where they're located. But there shouldn't be any dark corners. There's also a plan to have cameras used wherever needed. So yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank you. Follow up to Councilman Tudor's comment. So you're planning on having an open area on the second floor. I guess my question is, who removes the snow from that, and where does it go? And has any thought been given to putting a bubble over the top or glass or?
No, we haven't thought about putting a bubble over it. It's $15 million, so that would cost money. There are probably, I think it's 90% or 95% of commercial roofs in Alaska are flat, and water is handled on those roofs by, you've got usually 8 to 10 inches of rigid insulation, and that slows, that provides a good amount of insulation for heating, for keeping your heat in there, but it's just slowing the heat loss, and the heat from the building always is going through the insulation, no matter pretty much how thick it is, and so that melts the snow, which then flows into roof drains, and they go down into a dry well. And so that's how it's typically handled on virtually every commercial building that's built. And so we're planning on the same thing with this.
Follow.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Okay, I'm still a little concerned about if we get, pick a number, 2, 3, 4 feet of snow that falls into the middle of this quadrangle or whatever you want to call it. It's going to take a while for it to melt. Obviously unusable space at that point. The wind blows and the wind's going to come over the top and create drifts in that area. I'm a little concerned about that. I'm not sure if, we have librarians that are, or where is that snow going?
So there are many buildings that are not completely rectangles, and we could make this a complete rectangle where you wouldn't have the snow in a lower roof area, and it's going to be the same whether the snow is on the roof or whether on a lower roof, and.
Well, I'm not talking about the roof. I'm talking about the garden area.
It's the same thing. It's a roof. It just happens that you have a protective surface on it that you would walk on, but it is still a roof. And if we took the protective pavers off of it and say we walled all of the walls where you couldn't see the snow, and this is just sort of talking through the problem, that your snow is going to fall on the roof or any surface. And you're going to have snow drifts no matter where you are. Now, the way you would avoid having drifts would be having smaller parapets, or and then the snow is going to blow off your roof. In some cases, it'll sit for a little while, but usually, I suppose. Probably one of the biggest areas of failures on buildings is roofs. We've not had any roof failures on our buildings, but that doesn't mean they don't happen, and it's not that we don't share your concern about that. There was a suggestion that since we're not providing the library to the size that was originally requested, that there be a plan for expansion. This was an easy way to get some expansion. The programmatic requirements of what wanted to be downstairs and what wanted to be upstairs went back and forth, and it's really difficult with the program to balance those spaces from functionally for the staff, and so it ended up that there was less space needing to go upstairs than wanting to go downstairs, and part of that is those meeting rooms, because that's where that flat space is over. So anyway, if that's like a no-go deal, that can be re-looked at. And so it was an idea of how to easily add a space that could be added onto.
I don't have a problem with the open space. I think it's great that you can sit outside and look at this, have the sun in the winter or whatever. I'm just more concerned about that space then becomes unusable during the wintertime when you have a lot of snow as opposed to having it covered up. I don't mean a solid roof either.
Even if it is covered in drift load of snow and unusable, that the structural engineering of that roof will be solid enough to handle a drift load sitting there for an extended period of time.
Either I'm missing the point or you're missing the point. My point is not the weight. My point's not the weight of the snow. My point is the fact that I think that should be a usable space, and the only way you're going to have it usable in the wintertime is to have it covered. Otherwise, it becomes unusable.
Right, but the other criteria is $15 million.
Let me interrupt here, and sorry, Councilman Cooper. I think others want to maybe ask questions.
Well,
Councilwoman Malin.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councilman Cooper's point, I think what we're trying to get at is that we had an incident. I mean, you're well aware of that. We understand that you've engineered this and that specific space in order to with that forethought. I think what we're asking is that cost and maintainability is critically important to us because that's what we have to encapsulate in the budget, correct? Mm-hmm. So what are the plans for egress or easy accessibility that doesn't have to be accessed through the innards of the building, but through the outer portion of the building in order to be able to eliminate that snow? Because I do think that we hold a responsibility regardless of whether it's whether the snow can stay there because it's been structurally sound. I think that we still have a responsibility to remove that snow because it will inherently meet mass at that point. So was there any plans to create like an egress there to where it's easily maintainable?
No, there's egress off of it as required by fire code, but there's not a way to get up to it from the outside because that's also a bit of a security risk. And honestly, that deck doesn't have to be there. I mean, we could redesign it somehow to make that go away. That was, I think that was a suggestion by someone else. We're trying to accommodate it. We've done a lot of buildings with roofs like that haven't been an issue. They haven't been walked on, but they hold as much snow and they don't leak. And we wouldn't anticipate people going out there in the wintertime necessarily. It'd be more of a summertime thing, but it certainly doesn't have to be there. And I think what Laura was saying is, this is where we stopped right now because we had some with the insights from the library committee. We had some directives, and we were trying to achieve those. And if the answer from the council is get rid of the roof deck, let's get rid of the roof deck. I mean, we certainly don't have the money to enclose the roof deck. That's going to be expensive because you're buying a whole nother roof above that, and then 4 walls. So anyway, we hear that, and we're not arguing with you at all. We understand your concern. Yep.
I would like to add there is a small area, which I don't know if this has a laser on it, or does this have a laser? Does anybody know? Oh, it does. Yes.
Oh, there you
okay.
We're not that.
It's not going to work on the monitor. Anyways, there's a small area on the south side of this roof deck that is covered. So even if the majority of it was not cleared, there would still be some usable space up there.
Yeah, and the area on the north side, just to speak to Councilman Cooper's concerns, is also a flat roof, and it holds 2 rooftop units. And it will also fill up with snow, but it's a place to put rooftop units that aren't sticking up on top of the roof. So that's just, the second floor is almost half the size of the first floor at the moment.
We could enclose, instead of having rooftop units, we could have an enclosed fan room instead and have that equipment be interior. That just becomes more expensive, so we went with a more economical option.
Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, Gary, this is another one of those that I like what's been presented to us. I can live with it. The feature of the rooftop ability, I think it's going to be a jewel that when folks are up there and they get to sit there and enjoy the library itself and the surrounding of our community, I think it's going to be just the go-to spot, especially come watching parades and fireworks and that kind of stuff, to be able to sit out on the rooftop area and kind of overlook that kind of stuff, just to be able to sit out there and look at the surrounding beauty that we have around here is going to be amazing. I've got no problems with the design itself. The biggest concerns that I've had community members is just about the price, and there again you've tried to narrow it down enough to where we still have something that's going to be something that gets us into the future and not really take away our ability later on with over expenditure. So I think it's just kind of where we are right now. I don't want to see us having to rehash things and tweak the design too much. I'm not afraid of things looking a little bit more modern than kind of our past. Like I said before, I saw your vision in the last one having different aspects of hearkening towards the history of our area, but not really not a complete post-modernization kind of stuff. It just, it doesn't look right. So I had no problem with the last design as it was, architecturally speaking. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you guys have done a great job. I think you incorporated many of the different desires that you heard from both the council as well as the citizens, and I think you've also been budget conscious and economical, and I really appreciate that. And I also, I sat down with you guys and talked about your reasons for the different aspects and things that you chose to do with or do without, and I have confidence in your design, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes.
Any other council members? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate it, and we appreciate working on being able to work on projects, and we're, more than willing to take another swing at it if, there's things that people want to see different. And we're just right down the hall there, so thank you.
Thanks. Next we have reports, and welcome Gina, our interim city manager.
Thank you, Steve.
And I believe we've scheduled one of your department heads to do a report.
Yes.
Or a 3-part report or something, I'm not sure what.
Yes, our Public Works Director, Jude Bilfer, is here to give us an update on the Public Works Department.
Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Manager Davis. I'm Jude Bilfer, your Public Works Director, and included in your packet you will see the outline for, I will give a brief discussion covering each one of those topics, and then we can go in depth on them. Thank you for this opportunity. There seems to be lots of questions, this is a wonderful venue to produce information for folks. One thing that has significantly started to increase in the city of Palmer is a desire to connect to Palmer City water. And that's not a bad thing, as long as we look forward. So regarding connection of city water, it is the council's authority to authorize connection outside of city limits. The city currently has 321 outside city limit water connections. Now, that's a bit misleading because if there are a couple commercial connections, and I'll give you a prime example, the newest one is up off of Scott Road. It's a multifamily subdivision called Breezy Meadows. There is one metered connection to that multifamily unit. That multifamily unit will have 80 connections inside of it. So while it appears a number, a single connection, there's going to be a lot of water going through that single meter, just to give you an idea. So while I say there's 321 outside connections, recognize that there are a couple in that category, okay? And that's just, so why am I bringing this up? As we continue to have this demand, we need to start looking for additional water production capability. The city currently has 5 wells. Of those 5, 3 are operational, 2 are not. And those were due to contamination issues when they were first created, and they were capped and they're not in use. 1 well has decreased its production. So bottom line, the city's water system right now is operating off of 2 very productive, large wells. And each one of those wells produces around 1,200 gallons a minute. So we're not in any danger of not being able to produce water for the city. I want to get that across. But due to the increased volume and the desire to connect to city water and some potential plans for further expansion inside the city's water utility district, which you can see, oh, that's the map, or the fire one. I thought there was a water utility one. Oh, there it is, thank you. There could be some pretty significant expansion. And as I mentioned, now is the time to look forward and explore new wells for the city. At the moment, we have some hydrology reports that were done in the past that are still valid. I'm not asking for money at the moment. I am merely giving a courtesy heads up in a direction that I recommend we go as a city, and that is start looking at new wells, at least one, possibly two, for the city. So that's the purpose of that bullet there, the city water connections. Anybody have any comments, questions, thoughts on that bullet?
I've noticed my water pressure gone down, but I suspect it has more to do with my teenager coming home. Councilwoman Moline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mrs. Mayor. Thank you. Jude, thanks so much for coming in, and thank you for a well laid out memorandum here. What's the cost of a normal drill?
It's all per foot, and the drill,
To
actually drill a well, and it varies by the size of the casement that we would drill.
But we suspect we know what that is, right, in the
Well,
areas that you're considering?
At the moment, no, because I have not explored a company yet, and that's been intentional. I did not want to do anything until I got some guidance that yes, let's go forward with this exploration. So what we do have is we know the general area where the hydrology reports show the best aquifer and the most volume flow of water. So we know that general area. That general area happens to be not nearly as rocky as some other areas, which changes how the drilling is done.
Follow up, Mr.
Well, yes. go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. What I would like to maybe see is some financial analysis, because we love data, and what that ROI would look like if there were 2 additional wells drilled, and then the capacity.
Certainly.
Because that would be important. Thank you. I don't want to trump any of your other things here, but I did have one thing that I wanted to ask you about, and that was, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Well, maybe we should let him get to his report. Is it verbatim?
It's specifically about the water and the sewer.
Okay.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
I hate to do this to you, Jude, but the smell out at out at the treatment plant. So I've had several people reach out to me this week in regards to the smell. They said they were promised that this would be dredged earlier in the year because that would probably eliminate the smell. Do we have a concrete plan in place to dredge earlier in the year rather than, or sludge, whatever you want to call it, the dredging? To specifically do that earlier in the year, are there roadblocks in order to do that earlier in the year versus now where it's very smelly and warm?
Great question. To be specific, we are not dredging right now.
Okay.
So
So it just smells.
correct. Well, and there is a reason for that lovely aroma down there. So this is the first time right now the city of Palmer is conducting maintenance on the 2 new clarifiers. And as part of that maintenance, we are to completely drain the clarifiers for cleaning, greasing, inspection, that sort of thing. So as mentioned, this is the first time we are doing this. This sort of operation needs to take place when it is warmer. Now, as per the design, there was a piping system that enabled us to do this draining of the clarifiers. The piping system went straight down into the sludge on Lagoon 2. This was not thought of in terms of the byproduct. When we started draining the clarifiers, all the draining material went down and stirred up that sludge, thereby releasing ammonia, nitrogen, and everything else, and turned over Lagoon 2. So, that is what that lovely aroma is from. Now, we were following the design guidelines. This is in the operations directive of how you do this. What our crew has done, and so we've been at this for about a week, what our crew has done, we are not going to follow that operations manual because of the impact to our community around that wastewater treatment plant. We have already cut that pipe. We are not going to use it because of the impacts. So we are designing a different method. It will not go down and stir up those sludge bottoms on the bottom of Lagoon 2. If folks have noticed, and I've been down there every day, the aroma today is significantly reduced. What we are trying to do is broadcast that material as we have about a quarter of a clarifier to go, and we are distributing it across the top of the lagoon, thereby not disrupting the sludge, which is where most of that aroma comes from. When I say most, 95% of it. So yes, we have a plan. Unfortunately, I cannot do it when it is cold out. It's not feasible. So it has to be during the summer. Unfortunately for folks, based on the schedules of what we were doing, it happened to be just glorious days, 75, and people want to open the windows to their homes, and I would love it if I had, giant bottles of Febreze to distribute down there. Unfortunately, we did not. And I'm not trying to make light of it. I know it is an absolute atrocious aroma. Compound that with a lot of the farmer fields right now with manure being spread on them, and it magnifies the issue across the board. All you have to do is walk out my front door at Public Works building, and you notice it.
How often do we have to do this to the clarifier?
Once a year. Our goal in a perfect world would be able to pick a week span where it's rainy and cloudy and do that. And I mean that with all sincerity.
Yeah.
Based on the schedule right now, we have had fabulous weather for a wonderful period of time. And I dare say I would rather have this wonderful weather than pray for lots of rain and clouds. I think I'd be hung in effigy if I started doing that. But we do have a plan.
There you go. Deputy Mayor Anzalotti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since we are on the subject, thank you for clarifying all that information for our constituents. What's up?
Clarify.
And I know we talked about this earlier, and I've had some constituents contacting me, as you know, and one of them brought up the suggestion that if you, I don't know how far you scheduled whether it's the dredging or the clarifier cleaning in advance, but if there's a possibility of maybe sending out some sort of notice to people in the area so they can prepare. I don't know exactly how, but just, maybe not have an event outside, or just so they're aware that it's going to happen. So, if they're going on vacation, they can plan for that allotted time. But that was just a suggestion from a constituent, so I don't know.
We could certainly do that. Great suggestion. Our challenge will be that, as you know, that is well outside city limits. So I do not have mailing addresses, nor do we maintain anything like that for folks outside the city limits of Palmer. But what I can do is put that on not only the city's Facebook page, but Public Works Facebook page, and we can be more aggressive at doing that. We did not, so this is the first go round, as I mentioned, we did not know or anticipate, nobody did, the impacts of our maintenance operations. So I just ask for everybody's patience with this. We believe we have corrected it right now and do not anticipate this level next year.
Councilman Alcantara. He has more to go, so don't take too long.
I know, I'm just talking about city water connections, and thank you for this trip out to the wastewater plant, because I think all of us have received phone calls from folks that may not be constituents but live out there. But I'm more concerned about the city water connections, more this edification process for me, that as I understood what you said, one connection, I used the thing on Scott Road, instead of getting 80 customers that pay $93 a month to have city water and sewer, we get one customer that pay. I go back to Mr. Jackson talking about how he pays for 5,000 gallons, he only uses 3. And I can envision in an 80 apartment complex, there's a single person that uses 2,000 gallons and the family of 6 that uses 8,000. And what kind of revenue do we derive from having a single customer? I guess that's a Jude Gina question on do we get 80 times $93, which is the base rate, or do we get some much smaller amount because we have one customer with 80 people?
What you actually have is that is a much smaller meter on a normal residential connection. This is a significantly larger commercial sized meter. So the volume of water utilized, it doesn't matter if it's those 80 homes or not, it will go through that commercial meter and will be accounted for. So the usage, now the commercial meter, and forgive me, I do not have that off the top of my head, and I don't want to give you an incorrect number, but it is a much higher rate for that meter. Now, whether or not it equates to that, I don't have the answer, but I can get that in. Thank you.
Then you're going to tell us about snow.
Well, it's so nice out, I don't know that I should. But, so, I will. 15 years ago, the city had 5 graders that were used for snow removal across the city. 15 years ago, there were 980 fewer driveways. There were 208 fewer hydrants. There were 26 fewer cul-de-sacs and 330 fewer streetlights. Why is that important? Because we have 3 operational graders, 3 graders, that's all we have, and 3 equipment operators to maintain the same level of service that was done 15 years ago with 5 graders. And you see the increase there. I'm not even mentioning the airport. The airport expansion, and I'll include 20 years because it's been multiple projects, 8.8 additional miles of runway, taxiway, ramp space that needs plowing and attention. And it uses those 3 equipment operators. So, why am I talking about snow? Because now is the time I am asking for the authorization to purchase a new grader. I would like to break up the city into 4 quadrants. It is currently 3 quadrants. 3 sections, so this wouldn't be quad. By bringing a 4th grader with a 4th equipment operator, and that's part of the, we'll talk about with personnel pieces, that would allow us to maintain that level of service that our residents and customers have grown to appreciate. The last couple years, as you may well be aware, we have had significantly greater snowfall. And it is a challenge right now to provide the desired service and at the level that we want. We have an exceptional crew. The Public Works crew is unbelievable. But with the increase in the demands at the airport and around town, there is a need, and in my opinion, a very important need, which would be a 4th grader to allow any 4th operator, because obviously the grader doesn't operate by itself, to continue to provide that level of service. Could we get by on the same? We can, but I will tell you now, having 2 years now under my belt with that, it is getting more and more challenging. And with the the addition of the cul-de-sacs alone, as I mentioned, I think once before, it takes us 2 to 3 hours, depending on the size, to clear a cul-de-sac, because I have to take people out of the graders, put them into loaders and dump trucks to haul that snow away. And it's just a challenge. And that's why I'm talking about snow when it's 75 degrees out and asking for the authority. It would be a mid-year purchase of a grader. And that costs
approximately, yeah. What's the cost?
$410,000 is what that would be. So I'm not seeking an answer this evening, but for you to think about.
Is that brand spanking?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Now, do you want to cut your report in half, or you want to keep moving?
Okay.
I'm telling you to speed up here.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. Personnel actions are coming forward. That's all you need to know. You're gonna see them on your agenda. How's that? Is that quick?
Very good. And I might have bounced them to the next meeting anyway, but
I'm okay with that. The real one that I really want, I could even skip the last one because it's kind of self-explanatory, is I am seeking some guidance, some direction on the Fireweed Railroad crossing. I am looking at this specifically from a safety and maintenance issue with Palmer City vehicles. So over the last 6 years, just the Public Works Department alone has sustained over $27,000 worth of damage to its equipment. And that is not due to, let me make sure this is very clear, that is not due to operator error. So loaders, graders, loaders what carry the snow blower as well, do not have shock systems. It does not matter how slow you go. When you rock, doesn't matter the angle, those machines rock. And a 14-foot moldboard, that is the big blade, the bottom of the grader, you can only raise it this high off the ground. That blade rocks. 5 years ago, we ripped off one moldboard, $14,000 to repair that grader. We damaged a snowblower last year when it caught a lip on the track, because the condition of the tracks at that specific location, that's all I'm focusing on, have deteriorated so significantly that snowblower, one side of it, turned into like a taco. And if it were not for the creative ability of one of our staff members, our mechanic, Mr. Danny Russell, who for 7 straight days worked to fabricate the repair of that snowblower, which is our primary road snowblower, to blow the snow off the roads into the trucks, just his work alone was in the vicinity with the steel and everything else in his time, a little over $7,000. And there are numerous ones that I am not aware of. I have had the Matsuburo EMS folks complain to me about that specific one. Ambulances going across the fire trucks. I wish Chief Chad was here. Again, I don't know of a detailed list of damage to their vehicles, but it does. I get lots of complaints from people regarding that intersection. There's a fine line of what you do at that intersection. Again, seeking direction. Our goal would be those tracks are not usable tracks. The Alaska Railroad has written letters to us saying they authorize whatever repair we want to do at that intersection. This is not something that a Band-Aid's not needed here. This is a repair to that intersection, and when I'm talking, a general idea would be to potentially cut the tracks, lower that intersection, because there's other issues that happen now. I'm not saying that people drive fast in town, but there have been several cases where people have gone over those tracks. The view is sometimes if I go over them faster, they don't bounce as much. Okay, I don't know if I subscribe to that, but those are the same people that end up running into Jensky's automotive facility. And I mean over the curb and hitting the side of the building. So, but that's a different story. Again, seeking direction for that specific crossing only. I'm not here to discuss
Councilor
other track
Shooter.
stuff, but
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real quick on the snow removal plan, thank you for bringing that to us now. I appreciate you being forward thinking on that. And for the railroad crossing repair, I'll jump to that one. is there a I don't want to say temporary solution is the right word, but I mean, instead opposed to ripping up the track, are we able to I mean, I'm not sure if it won't adhere, but put asphalt on it or something where we don't have to rip up the track, but we can just smooth it over in a permanent way. But should the railroad later on go, hey, we want that track to work in, we can just, tear it up again? Would that, is there a possibility of that?
There have been pavement patches put on in the past. They do not last very long because that is a concrete subsurface right there, and it does not adhere to it. And just so everyone knows, Alaska Railroad trains cannot run on the poundage rating of that rail line. Cannot. And will not, because that is, as I understand it from talking my discussions with the Alaska Railroad, those are 70-pound rails. What that means is that is the weight that those rails support. So the last time a train came on those rails was 2008. Alaska Railroad trains run on 120-pound rails now. So if Alaska Railroad wanted to utilize that rail line from their last point of operational rail, which is about, we'll call it the depot at the fairgrounds, to go from the depot there to the depot in Palmer is significant money. And when I mean significant, the $3 to $5 million range, depending on, there are other factors involved with that, because there are rail that are not perfectly aligned with the ballast underneath. So anyways, just to give you an idea, they cannot run on those rails.
Councilman Tudor.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, thank you. So it sounds like any kind of temporary thing. So what it sounds like, we have to tear it up. And would you be able to get us pricing on that?
I can.
And an extra plan?
I can.
Okay.
To give you a rough idea right now, about $500,000 to do that. Now, we have, as part of that, that would be you know how the city of Palmer does Christmas lights, and we do some other things.
Yeah. We
would bring power down and around that towards the senior center, that sort of area. So there's a lot of extra pieces with that. It would fix the slope of the sidewalk. I think the folks at the Pioneer and Veteran Home would be significantly grateful. But again, just seeking direction, because the unknown part is the damage to city, and I'm not telling. I got a call, I think I shared with Manager Davis, just this week. A lady called and said, hey, my vehicle was damaged by the tracks, I need you to pay for my front end alignment. Okay. Anyways, again, just seeking guidance to explore, and I'm not interested in, or not asking for anything else other than that intersection.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Jude. What kind of time frame, if you get the go-ahead to do this, how long is it going to take? Out of just ballpark.
Well, a ballpark. Let's just say you gave me the go-ahead now. I would have to put out an RFP for design. That's a couple weeks. Then we get the designers on board. They might take maybe a month. Once the design's done and is approved, we would put it out for bid, which is a 2-week process here. So we're already several weeks. One of my concerns with this, and why I'm coming to you now, is actually my goal would be to build it, if that's the direction, as soon as school route next year. And why I say that, interrupting fair traffic is not something I would desire to do. Interrupting the first month of school is not something I would like to do. That's why I said a goal in a perfect world would be, because based on what I think a reasonable timeline would be, it might be able to go to construction in November. That's not realistic. So going to construction, having everything set, going to construction a week after school's out, that's before Friday Flings, but it's before Colony Days. There's no school buses running, there's no fair, there's no major events. And that was our thought process, why I'm coming to you now.
Just a quick follow-up.
Councilman
So did I miss, regardless of all the stuff you have to go through, once you put the blade in the ground, how long does that take?
We estimate about 3 weeks.
3 weeks, okay. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
So
I
this
apologize,
is
I thought the whole process.
so this is something we could be looking forward to in our budget process coming up here in a couple months.
We certainly can.
Yeah. Any other questions from council? You're good?
Time.
Okay, thank you. Manager Davis, did you have anything else you want to report on?
No, thank you.
Okay. Next is the mayor's report. I think I've got notes in my report about landscape beautification, and there's a process that staff has set up to vote. I think using, is it the website or the Facebook's site. Also included MPO update. They've let out a couple of major documents for comment, and so there's a whole public process. There's 30 days for comment. And also mentioned that we've put in 4 streets to pave that are dirt roads right now to use MPO funds for, presuming that gets through that whole process. And the Scottish Highland Games are coming up. And I might also note, it wasn't in my written report, that I've had a few calls from the chamber, and I've kind of facilitated a meeting with Manager Davis and the chamber to kind of talk about some of the issues with Friday Fling. And we've got another meeting scheduled of trying to work through some of the logistical difficulties, I guess would be a polite way of putting it. But and I've been trying to remind people that we have a manager form of government, which means the manager needs to be the first response for some of these issues. So, is there any questions for me? Okay. Next, city clerk. Do we have any questions for the city clerk? Okay. Attorney's report. Madam Attorney.
I'm going to be fast, so you'll be
Okay.
happy. So I did promise a quick verbal overview of the nonprofits. I'm putting together the spreadsheets that summarize some of these details, and those will be, we'll put the written report together for the July 19th meeting. It will be a significantly shorter report than I've given you before. But just in general, for your awareness, I've been going through, the City of Palmer works with, so far, I've looked at around 70 various nonprofits in varying capacities and different types of agreements. And those I'm putting together the spreadsheets of those specifics. And the associations of the City of Palmer with nonprofits around the valley fall into 8 separate categories, so you're aware of. We do, the City of Palmer does facility rentals. That would be like the Palmer Depot meeting rooms at the library. Permitting of various events, Friday Fling and so forth. Training that the city provides to nonprofits would be like waste and water treatment associations, I think with Job Corps, that they come to the city for. That's the 3rd category. The city then also provides various services to nonprofits, such as the police department doing security for the Alaska State Fair, which is a nonprofit. Then category 5 is grants, donations of services, funds to the city. These are like the Friends of the Palmer Library and the Alaska Assistance Dogs. So you'll see that coming up, but that's the nonprofit fundraising to provide for our canines. Number 6 is going to be our non-exclusive use agreements. That's for some of our facility, not an actual facility, but space that we use. That's our soccer fields, ball fields, tennis, and so forth. We also have issued professional service agreements with nonprofits. That's for maintaining operations of items. The VIC would be an example of that one with the PMHA. And then our 8th category are our volunteer groups. That would be an example of that is the Palmer Volunteer Firemen's Association. And that's pretty much what I have for now. Those will be in spreadsheets and the details breaking down the type of user agreements, who and what we have written agreements for, dates and times, and then you can ask questions with that.
Yeah, any questions for the attorney at this point? Okay. Next is audience participation, but we'll go ahead and take a 5-minute break. Maybe open some doors. Take out a wall. We got everyone here? All right. Are we recording? Not yet. Okay. Now we're recording. Okay. So we're going to call the meeting back to order. And next is audience participation. And as much as I like to ad-lib, the attorney keeps telling me I need to read this. So, council meetings rules protect your right to testify and be heard, even if others in the room disagree with you. Council meeting rules also ensure that those attending can express their views if they do not interfere with the rights of others to see and hear the proceedings. At all times, order and decorum will be maintained in keeping with the civility and dignity of the legislative process. Please sign in, state your name, and there's 3 minutes per person. Our code also limits audience participation to 30 minutes. So that would be, and there's 2 of them. So one will be for 30 minutes. Then we'll go on to action items, and then afterwards we'll probably continue the list. And we may extend the second audience participation, or we may take some action that makes it not so important. So, all right, audience participation. Mike Molesky. I think you're first on the list. Oh, that was the first meeting. Ah, okay. All right, and it's 7:25, by the way. So Jackie, go for it.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor, Manager, members. My name is Jackie Goforth. I thank God that these meetings are broadcast so that I can actually listen to them and see what's being said. And I want you to know that when I attended the Matthew Health Foundation, I was told by that woman, when I told her that parents have the right to raise their children, and she said, not if they send them to school, they don't. That is an accurate statement, and there was a witness to it. And the statement is now going to the legislature so they can hear it. And I want you to know that what happened last time is a Matsu Borough Library Board member came up here and said, think about it. Think about it. There's not Marxism happening in any place in the Friends of the Libraries or any of the nonprofits or in the library. There's no Marxism going on. Well, she didn't realize that back when these were founded, the Chinese Communist Party was not spending billions of dollars to support our universities and buying the curriculum. And if you don't believe that, please get on a search engine and search Chinese Communist parties donating to universities, $1 billion to Harvard. Please look. So, what are the hallmarks of Marxism? Get rid of the families, destroy the families, get rid of fathers, put everybody in a commune, hence the word communism, make the children wards of the state. We all know that, right? Well, I have the Black Lives Matter original manifesto. It's been taken down offline everywhere. You cannot find it anywhere unless you put it on a thumb drive and you have a computer that never got on the internet, which I do. Now, she's not passing them out to you, so I'm going to have to read to you what page 4 says. And I've highlighted them for you on yours. We do the work required to dismantle cisgender privilege. We build a space that's free from sexism and environments in which men are centered. We dismantle the patriarchal practice. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement. And we foster a queer network, freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking. What does anything in there have to do with melanin content of your skin? Nothing. It's a Marxist agenda. Not only is it a Marxist agenda, it's not even hidden. This is a book that I complained about and brought to the attention of everyone several times throughout the summer last year. This is a book that says, The Teen's Guide to Sex, Relationships, and Being Human. And yet on this page, you can see, man, F the patriarchy. Why is that in a book on teen relationships? Out of the blue, here comes a little cartoon character saying, hey, we got to get rid of the patriarchy. It's an agenda. It's Marxism. And these books that are being put in the libraries by people are pushing Marxist ideology onto children who are very aware of it. The other thing, well, I guess I don't get to it. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Noel Copperroot?
Good evening, I'm Noel Copperwood. I'm here to talk about the parking waiver that'll be before the council this morning, or this evening, on the former Just So building. I live at 523 South Alaska Street, which is at the north end of the same block that the applicant's building is on. I've lived there for about 80 years. I have 4 lots that go from Alaska Street to South Colony Way, which is my main access point. I appreciated Mr. Hansen's layout of the issues and the questions, although I think I would characterize the matter before the council, the question differently. It's not really an issue of granting extraordinary parking relief to rehab a derelict building in the central business district. The applicants are really seeking relief from a problem they intend to create. First of all, the waiver is a bad idea for the following reasons. It's completely unnecessary. In the 65 years I've been driving by the Just So building, if you want to call it that, it's never been vacant. It's a fine building, it's dated, it needs to be upgraded, but the idea that extraordinary council relief is necessary in this situation is nonsense. Additionally, you should keep in mind that there's plenty of room for the applicants to have 20 customers inside, run a counter, rent the rest of the building out. There are all kinds of possibilities for that building. Also, the idea that you want to put in a high pedestrian risk area a restaurant with 130 customers, my word, with meeting rooms and so forth. We have a little man in the middle of the intersection down there trying to slow the traffic down. We don't want to hurt a child. Where are you going to park these people? Are you going to give them all of the public parking that was paid for by the taxpayers and is maintained by the taxpayers for the private, for-profit customers of the Naked Barbecue people? I don't think so. The better choice, I believe, would be for them to continue as good neighbors to all of us and operate the building for its intended purpose. If they want to find an appropriate site for 130 or table or customer location, then please save money from their $1.5 or $9 million thing to build some good parking. In summary, I drive by the building several times a day. Things are changing down there at the park. And as a neighbor, I try to remember that we're all in this together. Thanks.
Thank you. Heidi Dedmond?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'd just like to start. My name is Heidi Dedmond, and I am here on behalf of myself this evening. I just want to start by thanking Gary Wolf and Laura Reed. They have done an amazing job with the ups and downs and wrangling around of this building. I mean, have they designed the thing 3 times now, I think? They've just done a great job really listening, and when we had our listening sessions, they did a wonderful job listening and really giving us good feedback and taking what we had to say. So I'd just like to thank them for all their hard work. Also, I'd like to thank the School District Citizens Library Advisory Committee. I took Mike's suggestion at the last council meeting to go and listen to their, or watch their committee meetings. And I was really impressed. When this started, I wasn't sure how it was going to go because you just have people that are not, just average citizens and didn't know what the rubric was going to be, didn't know kind of how it was going to happen, but I'm very impressed with how it's come out. Their discussions were frank and thoughtful, and they really grasped the parameters that they had to use to evaluate those books. So they did a great job with that. The other question I have is, why are we taking so long to get a library building approved? I mean, something. We're 16 months into it and we're still talking about square footage and budget. So I just know that I've been looking at grants for different things, and most of the grants that I find that we could qualify for, we can't apply for until we have an approved budget and approved plan. So we're just watching windows closing on grants that we can't apply for because we don't have that yet. So I'd just like to say, please, let's approve something and move forward. And I think I'm going to stop here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Prudence McKinney.
Good evening. My name is Prudence McKinney. I am the president of the Friends of the Palmer Library. Just letting you know that we are deep into our current summer reading program, which is going really well. And a hot tip for everybody, this week is ice cream week, which means if you come into the library with your reading log, or even you come into the library and get one and join the summer reading program this week, you get a gift card for free, either Big Dipper or McDonald's. Those are limited quantities, but I wanted you to know this is your time to act if you're looking for some ice cream, which I think we all need, given the current weather. Other exciting things going on this week, we have a program with the Recycling Center that will be on Thursday. And I want to say it's at the depot, and I think it's not at the depot. I can check really quickly. But that is our highlighted program for the week, and that is geared toward people of all ages who can pop out and check on, I'm sorry, I was just trying to get the location really quickly. Say that again? Oh, it's at the pavilion. That's it. Thank you. I knew it wasn't the depot. So we have that program this Thursday, and we do have a highlighted program every week, and you can check that schedule. It's on the website, and it's also on those reading logs. And if you get a reading log, you get ice cream this week. So there we are. Just wanted to let you know the things that actually are going on at the library, and we hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Combs.
Oh, hi, everybody. Long time no see. And yes, that was meant the way I said it. Good evening, Mayor Carrington and members of the Palmer City Council, as well as any city officials who are here. My name is Linda Combs. I reside currently at 335 East Melissa Rose Circle, Unit A, right here in Palmer. I'm very pleased to continue to be a resident of the city of Palmer. My background information, all of you are aware of it. It would take a big portion of my 3 minutes, so I'm skipping all of that. But tonight I would like to speak to you briefly as a citizen of the city of Palmer, an owner of property that is in the downtown business district, and a member of the current planning and zoning commissions. Suffice it to say, I've been frequently in these chambers, so in a variety of capacities, and I do find it an honor and privilege to be able to address you. Just 5 days ago, I was here talking to all of you in a joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and with pleasure, I was able to present a portion of the evening's agenda that was regarding Palmer's strategic plan for the downtown business district. And during the course of that presentation, I'm hopeful that you will recall, I stressed that the Commission and the City Council have a very real duty to plan for economic growth in a responsible manner. We all wish to see our business community thrive. There's not a one of us here that is not pro-business. There's no doubt in my mind. I know all of you. I know myself. We all wish to see things to thrive and to serve our citizens. The development of the current ordinances have goals in mind, and yes, it was built into it to have the ability to request a waiver if necessary, and if it turns out that it would be done, able somebody to manage an action in a responsible manner. But it does provide for those factors. But the first of those options has to do with having a reasonable solution that we don't appear to have because the property owner hasn't come up with a solution other than to ask for a waiver from the current codes. Many factors need to be considered. Public safety absolutely has got to be the priority. Resources the additional burden on the resources greatly surpassed the term reasonable in this case, in my opinion. And any owner of any business downtown has to be responsible for that. So I'd like you to remember all the information you received 5 days ago. I'm not going to try to repeat it, obviously. But we also talked at that time about regarding downtown parking needing refinement. Those ordinances need to be viewed. And as such, you as a council unanimously passed a motion to send this to planning and zoning for just that. So I'd like to remind you of that in your decision this evening. Thank you.
That's your time. Thank you. Lori Koppenberg.
Let me get my papers straight right here so I don't fumble around so much. Good evening, Mayor Carrington and council members. My name is Lori Koppenberg. My husband and I own Vagabond Blues and Purple Moose in downtown Palmer, both within the Central Business District. I am here this evening as a private citizen, property owner, and business owner. The Central Business District was implemented to encourage economic growth in Palmer. Palmer is no longer struggling to fill its storefronts and bring people to town. Palmer is a destination, and as a destination town, parking must be available. As it is, Palmer does not have an abundance of parking. Parking has been an issue in Palmer for years. In 2017, I attended and raised concerns to planning and zoning when they increased the area of the Central Business District to include more residential properties and reduce the number of parking spaces required for the Central Business District. High parking demand businesses such as restaurants, bars, cafes, bakeries, hotels, motels, event venues need to have a higher number of parking spaces to accommodate their guests and staff, 1 per 60 square feet or 1 per 3 seats, whichever is greater. Otherwise, the spillover parking places an undue burden on surrounding properties. Tonight, AM 24034 is seeking a parking waiver for 579 South Alaska Street for a business that could seat up to 130 guests plus approximately 10 to 15 staff. This property has 0 off-street parking. It does have a public parking that the city allows to be counted, 1 on South Alaska Street and 2 behind the building on South Colony Way. Current code would require a minimum of 26 parking spaces. The property that will have the biggest burden placed on it for purposes of parking will be the city's community center. The depot application packet states the community center can accommodate most community activities with its size and versatility. It also mentions Palmer is permitted and parking is permitted in all public parking lots. If the community center doesn't have sufficient parking, it is no longer a viable option for the community to use as an event venue. Palmer must update its current parking code and not permit waivers that impose an unfair burden on neighboring businesses and properties. It is the responsibility of the developer and property owner to meet the necessary parking requirements for each type of use. This will not stop economic development. It simply requires the owner-developer to seek out businesses that meet parking code. Care must be taken to avoid the undesirable impacts of undersupply of parking. For these reasons, the council must deny the waiver for this property tonight so its owners can move forward and use and make best economic decisions. It would be wrong of council to prolong these decisions. Plans cost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to complete. That's it on that, but I want to touch base on the City of Palmer and the Chamber of Commerce. The City of Palmer needs to step up its support of the Chamber of Commerce. The City of Wasilla gives their music in the park for 5 days, $15,000. The City of Palmer gives a mere $5,000 for the entire year. This council has an obligation to support our chamber so that Palmer is an attractive place to come. I ask that you start looking at that and provide the necessary monies that they need, and also to offer the support for parking. You do it for the state fair.
Thank you. Janet Kincaid.
A little unsteady, but I got here.
Good job.
I'm Janet Kincaid, and I'm part of the Valley Hotel. We've owned it as a family for 48 years. I think this is probably the longest one-owned family enterprise there is, certainly in Palmer, perhaps in the borough. When we bought the hotel, we had to comply with parking spaces. And Dan Cantini, who was the city fire chief, came and he and I worked out, and sure enough, we drew on paper enough for parking places. Well, this covered our clients, but in those days, our cafe was much smaller. But what it didn't take into consideration is employees. And our parking regulations today do not take into employees. You can't have a business without employees. So when a lot came up for sale, we quickly snapped it so our employees would have a place to park. And I think this is important. It has expanded to where it has, my youngest daughter now owns a hotel. I work there and pretend I'm the boss, and everybody respects that. But the fact of the matter is, I also own the Colony Inn. And recently, the Colony Inn has been a victim of the parking regulations. The Ale House decides they have concerts, and they're wonderful. I appreciate them. My guests, I hope, appreciate it, and they have to quit at 10 o'clock, so my guests don't mind. But they totally filled the parking lot last Friday. And so if my guests would have checked in late, they wouldn't have had a place to park. And this is of major consideration. I also am concerned about this waiver being granted would affect the depot parking. And I'm an active member of Chamber, go constantly. Where would we park? As you can see, I need that handicap parking. So thank you very much for considering it. Please don't grant the waiver.
Thank you. Sorry, Michelle Kincaid. And Janet's just honored enough to make sure to do it herself to get to her chair. Yes.
I'm Michelle Kincaid, Palmer business owner. I'm against the parking waiver request for a high parking business. Benefit is to one, and the burden is on thousands that use the Palmer Depot. If given a waiver, where will the 50 to 80 plus cars park? First, they will fill up the depot's 28 spots on South Alaska, making Depot non-viable as a community center. Don't grant waiver that destroys the Palmer Depot. This is a hard no waiver. Decide tonight. Even if the petitioners scale back, it would still consume all of the parking at the depot. Petitioners 7 to 15 staff will park 8-hour shifts. Where will they park? They will park all day, consuming the depot parking or in front of the businesses, damaging businesses that code allowed them to count frontage street parking as spots for their customers, and they rely on it. How can council waive parking for high parking needs and push cars to park all over the place on an already congested area? Don't grant this waiver. It takes away every other business's code-allowed frontage street parking. This building has one designated street parking on Alaska. The yellow no parking at the crosswalk and the distance to the street entrance only allows enough for one on South Alaska. The code 1764-050 requires them to delete the proposed addition on the back and make one on-street parking. I quote, "Intent to clause is to provide as much off-street parking as practical." The 320 East Dahlia is a prime example of keeping outdoor space for more seating and ignoring the code-required off-street parking. The new owners knew in advance of the purchase that it was not suitable for a bar and restaurant, and the land beside it was not for sale. The city told other people that the highest commercial use for this property is retail and apartment below. The building currently provides 0 on-street parking. Was this building chose for free parking? No taxes, no plow bill, no liability insurance on it. Even drawing a proposed fence for outdoor dining and alcohol that is on the city property. What about handicap parking? City Council, you are aware of the parking issues, and last Thursday unanimously instructed Planning and Zoning to update the code. Look at the 2007 waiver given to 320 East Dahlia and the problem it's created ongoing above the waiver original use. This non-compliant business overran parking, causing safety concerns that even forced Friday Fling to get canceled or put on pause. They overrun all of the parking, the depot, the library, the borough, Dahlia, Denali, Elmwood, and other private business parking. Don't grant this waiver, it would dump on all the rest of the public, businesses, and homes. The restaurant bar real parking needs are one per 2 seats. The prior meeting, I've asked City Council to look at 1 per 3 seats and 60 square feet. This two-way formula at least lowers the burden on the public, surrounding homes and businesses. Strong codes for high parking needs to be throughout Palmer, not just the CBD. City Council,
That's your
I ask
time.
you to say no to the waiver request for high parking needs. Thank you.
Darcy Treadway?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Darcy Treadway. I'm the president of the Valley Quilters Guild. And the Valley Quilters Guild has had a long-standing relationship with the City of Palmer and the Palmer Depot. We currently rent the depot 2 days a month, one of which is for our meeting and for our service committee to use the depot to process quilts and fabric donations and make kits so that we can give out over 200 quilts a year to the community, to people in need, or to other nonprofit organizations. We also gave over 200 additional quilts last year to the Palmer Senior Center's Meals on Wheels for Christmas gifts for their recipients. Having the parking waiver given out or approved would impact our memberships, because our members, a good portion of our members are over 60 years old. If the parking lot is in front of the depot is full of patrons to the bar and grill, where are they going to park? Most of them wouldn't be able to walk further than the parking lot in front of the depot. And so consequently, they would not attend our meetings. We also have an open sew one Saturday a month where people come and go throughout the day from 10 a.m. till 10:30 at night. And so that would also impact their ability to use that facility for that. We also rent it 3 weekends a year for long retreats, 4 to 5 days. So we just feel as a group that uses the depot that it is really not it's not a good use to approve a waiver that would impact people wanting to use the depot, like our group and others. I mean, a wedding that would want to rent the depot for a Saturday, and then you've got the patrons from the bar and grill parking there and not having enough space for them to park. And so we just would like to express our feelings about not approving the waiver.
Thank you. So Ronald Troy Vincent?
I'm the one seeking the waiver, so I guess I'll have time to speak when we get to that section, or do I need to speak about it now? 'Cause I need more than 3 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, if we decide we want to ask you questions, we might do that, but if you want to guarantee to speak, you've got 3 minutes now.
All right, well, Bare Naked Barbecue here.
Go ahead and come up with it.
So yes, I own Bare Naked Barbecue. Yes, I bought the building with the intent on making a restaurant. If that doesn't work out, I guess I can go to retail. But the goal is, that's what I do, I barbecue. I don't sew, so I'm not gonna make it a sewing shop. Parking, that is true. There was a waiver for a reason, or you guys wouldn't have that in the books. I'm willing to spend up to about $2 million to retrofit that building and to have 5 customers. The math's not there. Also to find out that the previous lady said 50 to 80 cars. Well, that's not what I'm seeking. That's 450 people in my restaurant, which that's not going to be the case. So one of the things that needs to be striked on here, there will be no rooftop bar. So that can strike that down to about 95 people. So what I'd be looking for is 20 spots. As we all know, it's very limited there for parking. And you know, I looked in the YouTube, there's an investment in Palmer. This lady here categorized it pretty good. If you're not looking for business to invest, I mean, I don't know what to do with the building. I guess a lot of these local businesses had an opportunity to buy the building, or they can approach me and buy it from me, and you can turn it into a parking lot. But the goal is to make it an eating establishment that's, I consider, much needed in Palmer. Anybody got any questions? Oh, it's not? Okay.
Yeah.
First time here. Don't know the rules. And yes, I would appreciate questions if that comes through.
One more. Okay. All right. We've hit 30 minutes, so we'll close this round of audience participation. Next is public hearings. Resolution number 24-024, authorizing the city manager to accept and appropriate funds from the Alaska Assistant Dogs Palmer Police Department K-9 Fund to purchase a new police K-9 from Shallow Creek Kennels, Inc. in Sharpsville, Pennsylvania, not to exceed $15,515.91. So we will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to this specific resolution can come forward. Okay, we will close this public hearing. What's the wishes of the council?
Mr. Mayor, move to approve.
Okay. Mr. Best, I think, was faster, so we'll consider her second. All right, any discussion, comments from the council? Questions?
Yes.
Councilwoman Malie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What is 15 the, Mr. Mayor, can we ask, or through
the manager.
Through the manager, sorry, I'm gonna have to get used to that, to the chief. Is 15,000 probably what a new K-9 costs, or is there? Yeah. What's our cap on that? Thank you.
He's getting permission from his boss.
Yes.
That's right.
Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Yes, Councilwoman Moline. The 15,000, that number there, 15,000 some change, is what we have in the Alaska Assistance K-9 Fund, the nonprofit that's earmarked for the Palmer PD K-9 program. So it's specifically, we have that money in the nonprofit that is strictly for use for the K-9 program. We expect that the dog is going to cost somewhere between $9,000 and $12,000, and then there's some travel and some training that is with that too.
Okay. Great.
So it's truly a not to exceed.
What's that?
It's truly not to exceed.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't expect it to be that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Councilmember Tudor?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Councilmember Moline?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anzalati?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Next is action memorandum number 24-034, authorizing a parking waiver from the Central Business District parking regulations for the property located at 579 South Alaska Street pursuant to Palmer Municipal Code 17.64.050. So we need a motion to get to talk about this.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
And seconded, okay. What's the wishes of the council? Do we want to hear a little bit more from staff, or? Okay. Madam Manager.
We have Mr. Hanson here to bring us up to date.
Welcome, Brad. The batteries dead? It is pretty warm in here. Batteries tend to.
It's on now.
Okay.
So the city of Palmer received a request to waive the parking requirements for 579 South Alaska Street. According to Palmer Municipal Code 17.64.050, property owners within the Central Business District can apply directly to the City Council for a waiver of parking requirements. The City Council holds the sole authority to grant such waivers, and no exceptions are permitted by staff. A site plan review is necessary to ensure compliance with Title 17 whenever there is a change in property use, such as from retail to restaurant, or when a building is expanded, they lose their non-conforming use. In this case, no commitments have been made by city staff that conflict with the Palmer Municipal Code, as staff does not have the authority to waive these requirements. A development meeting was held with the property owner, their architect, survey, and city staff upon learning of the purchase. During this meeting, the property owner was informed that the change in use would void their non-conforming status and that they would need to comply with Title 17 to proceed with redevelopment plans. They were also informed about other relevant Title 17 code. The City Council may approve, deny, or set conditions on the request for the parking waiver. Palmer Municipal Code 17.64.050 states that to encourage economic growth in the downtown core and permit the redevelopment of property to its highest commercial use, parking requirements may be waived after review by the City Council. It is the intent of this clause to provide as much off-street parking as practical while allowing commercial development in the core area. For restaurants in the Central Business District, the code requires 1 parking spot for every 5 seats. Additionally, the Central Business District Code permits on-street parking to count towards the required parking spots with 25 feet of free frontage qualifying as 1 parking spot. Currently, 579 South Alaska Street qualifies for 4 parking spots under Palmer Municipal Code requirements. The rationale for reduced parking requirements in this Central Business District stems from the recognition of previous councils of the unique characteristics of downtown Palmer, such as lot size, existing development, the availability of on-street and off-street parking, and public parking lots. Their objective was to allow property owners to maintain economically viable business downtown while aligning with the goals of the comprehensive plan. I would entertain any questions.
Questions for Mr. Hanson? So from what you were saying, just by straight title, whatever this is, 17, it would be allowed it could count towards 4 parking spots. Correct. Existing without us doing anything.
Those would all be on street. Those would be
right.
Alaska and on
South Cone.
So, Mr. Mayor?
And that doesn't require anything from us?
No, 4 would not, no.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Councilwoman Moline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hanson, how old is this code, and was the original intent obviously was for economic development purposes and to lure, I guess would be the wrong word, but to entice business development within the downtown core. How old is this? Because I have a feeling we're kind of beyond that.
Parking requirements for the Central Business District was created in 2005. And really, the only thing that was in the Central Business District at that time was parking requirements.
Good. Any questions of staff? Well, we got him here. Okay. Comments from council? Questions? Councilwoman Moline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Boy, this is really difficult because you weigh development. We've got an absolute excellent opportunity with some wonderful people to come into the community. But we've said it probably multiple times. I think I even ran on it for my term, is that we have to be careful with how we develop in Palmer. And I'm highly concerned because we've had a lot of instances lately with not only parking, but the subject of that congestion from the events and the growth that naturally comes, which is a wonderful thing, but you have to balance that out and the impact to the community, and not only that, but the safety for the community at large. So this is tough, but I actually believe that this code needs to be changed, that the waivers should no longer be applicable. And I'm not in favor of this, and I'm really sorry to say that because I love growth. I just don't think that this is the right place for this.
Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Definitely associate myself with the remarks of the former councilwoman there. It seems to me that maybe more due diligence should have been done in deciding, hey, how am I going to build a business this large, and what would have transpired. As was mentioned earlier in a testifier, 5 days ago, we took action at a joint planning and zoning and city council meeting. And I think that action almost even supersedes, even if I wanted to support this, I think the action we took 5 days ago would almost supersede it. So I'm against this waiver. Thank you.
Councilman Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to mirror what the other council members have said. I hate to be sitting here and saying no to an amazing business. I mean, barbecue is amazing. I mean, your food is great. It's just the location. It's right next to the train depot, as other people have mentioned. There's going to be a natural inclination for people to park in those areas and just around the street, which is going to take away parking from the other businesses nearby. And so, much I hate to say it, I mean, I just feel like even our current code, as Councilman Alcantara had said, is just not sufficient for restaurants because it's just a different beast where you have people there for 1 to 2 hours taking up a parking space. I just don't think that our current code matches reality for the restaurant scope. So I'm going to have to say no on this as well.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to take the opposite approach because Just So building is 0 lot line, and meaning that the railroad right away comes right to the corner edge, the very corner of the building, and then kind of angles off. And there's potential for maybe 2 parking places in the back, still questionable because it's railroad right away stuff. Main objective of the city, one of the main objectives of the city is to promote business. Granted, this might be a little bit large, I guess, for the number of places to park, but this, kind of provides now us an opportunity as a council that there is property around the city that the city should go out potentially and purchase property and make parking spaces available. Where the old, I'm not sure who owns where the old car wash was, but that's vacant. That could be an opportunity for parking. Could go north of the depot and improve that area, make it some more parking. Obviously, we know that the problem that we have throughout the city is limited parking. We've had that for a long time. There are other buildings that don't have parking. Like I say, it's unfortunate Just So is 0 lot line. I'm actually in favor of the waiver. The owner said that they only needed up to 20 spaces. We've given them 4 on the street. That means they have potential of 16. That's assuming that every seat in the restaurant is filled at one time. I'm sure if you look at the business across the street, there's a number of people that park in the depot parking lot to use that business as well, even though they have parking in the back of their building. So, again, I think that one of the main purposes of the city is to promote the business, not stifle it, and this is a great opportunity for us to do that. Thank you.
And I'll just comment for those in the audience that last Thursday we had a joint meeting with Planning and Zoning, and we gave them direction to review our Title 17 parking with the Central Business District. And so it's possible they will come back with recommendations or changes to that, but I guess I'm inclined to vote no on this just because we've already got this kind of outstanding process going. And I'm curious to see how that works out. But any other council comments? Do we want to relax the rules or? What?
Move to suspend the rules.
Okay, second. It's been moved and seconded to suspend the rules to allow the applicant to talk. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Moline,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Angelotti,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington.
Yes. All right. Come on forward, sir.
So,
Sorry, just got to follow our rules, you know.
no, I understand. I don't know the rules, so forgive me on a lot of this stuff. So, just throwing stuff out there. I did talk to the railroad. The railroad said if you guys are willing to give up your lease for that property that's right behind the building there and allow me to lease that property, I'll build a parking lot. I guess it's been talked about for 15, 20 years. I've seen some old dialogue in regards to making diagonal parking along that, even Colony Drive. As far as, I understand the rules right in front of the building. People do walk, go to the state fair, people walk half a mile to get in there to have some of that food. There's a parking lot across the street. You know, put a sign up saying, Bearneck Park, you're not allowed to park in the train depot. Pretty simple, all enforcement. There's a lot of parking. You go downtown, all that Colony Drive gets filled up with cars at certain times. And like I said, I can't imagine it costing a heck of a lot to arrange that style of parking. Like I said, it's been talked about for 15 plus years. It's just no action's taken place on that. I guess my other question is if you guys aren't going to allow me to do a restaurant there because of parking, they were really going to restrict what I can put there. I guess I could put a morgue. Not too many visitors going there. I do have some. Do you guys, if I make it a retail, do I got to come back in here and tell you who I'm going to rent to, or does it really matter? Because I got.
Basically, it's in the code for how to count for parking, so that's built in there. But I think staff said it was like 4, is what's kind of accounted for.
I have a couple potentials that you guys probably wouldn't want really. So I'm just saying. I want to ask who they are. I'm glad to volunteer. Anyway, I don't mean to make a mess. I know a lot of these folks that came up here and spoke have interest because they have following restaurants. Rest assured, I looked at all the menus from everybody, got one item, chicken wings. Occasionally I'll have a hamburger, so it shouldn't be a big conflict between what I'm doing and all the other residents or all the other business owners. Anyway, cool building, would love to build on it. Like I said, I've restricted the parking. If you can even restrict more if I don't rent out, the idea is to put some nice tables and offer a little area for like a wedding shower or something to that effect, so they can have some food and sit down and have that. But other than that, that's just a special occasion area. So yeah, we're talking 50 people, I think is the max I could fit in that building. So we're talking 10 spots. And I'm sure people are willing to walk from across the way at the train depot, library, over here at where they do the Friday flings at. Plenty of parking elsewhere. So I just would like those that have already said no to possibly reconsider. And that's all I got to say. And I'm here to answer questions. If you guys have any questions for me, please.
Councilman Cooper?
Troy, you'd mentioned 50 about renting out space. Have you given thought just to have the restaurant just on the main floor and not do anything with the basement? Would that limit the number of patrons that you would have on that main floor?
Yeah, I don't know what. I guess it depends on the demand. I think the food's pretty good, so I think the demand would be pretty high to have a little space down there to rent, watch the Super Bowl or wedding shower or whatever. But that's the intent. I'm not putting booths down there. It's just gonna have conference tables. No, you guys can come rent it from me if you want and get out of this hot place. But anyway, yeah, so, I mean, that's an option, and, you know, if that makes it, I could use it as storage, I guess. You know, turn it back into an apartment. No. But, yeah, I mean, so the idea is upstairs is to have the kitchen area, and there was gonna be like a little bar area around the top, and there's probably about 6 to 8 booths. I don't wanna have anything downstairs other than special occasion event.
Councilwoman Moline?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Troy, thank you for coming forward and making yourself available for scrutiny, for lack of a better term. Have you thought about purchasing a spot in the downtown district specifically for parking for your establishment?
Well, I haven't. I mean, that was costly enough as it is.
I understand.
And, you know, if a spot was to come open, I see there's one down the street that the place burnt down. It's $440,000. Pretty expensive parking lot. And if we're going to say that that's within distance to call it my parking, then we should probably count all the other areas that are a good quarter mile away or whatever it is as well before we go there. But, you know, land's limited. You know, I had some property secured a couple years ago and that deal fell through. Not on my part, but and that would have had plenty of parking and all that, but that didn't work out. So I've always, you know, I've been here since '88. Always driven by that building and thought, man, I don't sew, but it should be something more than a sew shop. And so it came up, I jumped on it, went on it, and I guess I'm finding out all the particulars after the fact. I guess I was supposed to be aware of some meeting 5 days ago. I wasn't. Is that what it sounded like? I was being told that had I been smarter, I would have attended that meeting, but I wasn't aware of it. Anyway, so that's all I'm trying to do is start a business and make good food. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council, or we're ready to vote? So, Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Councilmember Tudor?
No.
Councilmember Alcantara?
No.
Councilmember Vest?
No.
Councilmember Cooper?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti?
No.
Councilmember Moline?
No.
Mayor Carrington?
No.
1 to 6.
Okay. Next is action memorandum number 24-033, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute and assignment of lease agreement with Blue River Aviation LLC assigner and Blue River Airport Development LLC assignee for a PMA lease 23-001 on Block 3, lease lot 25A, Palmer Municipal Airport for the purpose of hangar construction. It's the wishes of the council.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilman Tudor and seconded by Councilman Cooper. Yes, Councilwoman Moline?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it appropriate to ask for a report from the
A
city?
staff report?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, whoever the manager wants to volunteer for this.
We have our airport manager, John Diamenti, here.
So we just have to hear a report on this.
A summary on this?
Yeah, please.
Well, it's, this lease was negotiated last year with Blue River Aviation. What he wants to do is add a partner transfer or assign the lease to another business to be able to build on the lot. The plan for the build at this point has been to build multiple different units and to assign it to an association when the building is complete. That's the plan that I've heard at this point.
So they currently just have a lot, and there's not a
They just have an
hangar
empty
on it.
lot right now.
Okay.
And it's a,
Councilwoman Maleen.
Thank you. So in the current lease agreement, it does have the assignments clause in there, is that correct?
I'd have to refer to the city attorney.
Yeah, I can speak to that.
Madam Attorney.
Because I drafted the first lease. Yeah. So yes, this is an assignment. I believe it's, oh gosh, I wrote it up here. Section 5.1 of the original lease. A, B, and C allows for voluntary assignments. This occurs often because our leases with the airport are 20 to 25 years. So if a member or partner in an LLC transitions out, or if they create a second holding company and then that main partner comes in, there's usually a voluntary assignment that aligns with that. So the original purpose of the lease was for the flight operations buildings and the things associated with it. So that was already granted permission. So you've got the aviation primary owner wanting to open up the same name at the development company and bring on a partner. It's pretty much a voluntary and automatic. I would strongly suggest you approving this.
Any questions for the attorney, for the council? Or for staff? Councilman Alcantara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it time where we can ask John here about his thought process of potentially delaying action on this resolution?
Okay, I'm not sure what your question is.
Have we moved this forward and can we?
We've had a motion and a second.
Okay. I move to postpone action on this resolution.
Until when?
July 22nd, or sorry. What is it, when in July? 23rd?
Huh?
Sorry.
Yeah,
July 23rd. I think there needs to be more to follow up with John's email. There needs to be more addressing of past history and noise complaints and other things.
So your motion was to postpone until when?
July 23rd.
July 23rd.
So point of information, if I can do that.
Well,
during this.
We don't have a second, so I guess you can fail for a second and then we can keep discussing. And then see what we want to do. Okay. What's your?
I'm just want clarification as to why we would ask for a delay. It is in the agreement, in the present lease agreement. So I'm just concerned that maybe we could be in breach, or that we could cause him to be in breach. I'm just wondering what's the purpose of the delay. Thank you.
The email of 11:23 this morning addressed that Blue River is the source of majority of noise complaints. City Council chooses to address noise complaints, maybe one of the avenues to do so. And I wouldn't be willing to answer any questions about this issue and would also support delaying action on this amendment in order to make a more informed decision. I just don't know if we're ready to make an informed decision on this one.
Okay. Councilman Cooper? Sorry, he had his light on. Go ahead, Councilman Best then.
All right, thank you. Yeah, are there any legal reasons why we should not go forward with this? I mean, is there a lawsuit that is pending?
I don't know what also has a history of the city at the airport actually entails.
Well, if I may, Mr. Mayor,
yes, Councilman Best.
I don't know of anything that has been laid before us that we can take into consideration for not going forward with this action. So unless there's something being put on the table before us, I believe that we have to take the information that is being presented to us.
As far as the business deal. Councilman Cooper?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Councilman Best. The issue before us is to let him assign a lease to somebody else. It doesn't have anything to do with the email that was presented to us this morning, which is totally two separate issues. So I say that, we don't delay this, and we, authorize the assignment. Thank you.
Any other Councilman Alcantara?
Just point out the subject of the email was Resolution 24033. That's actually in the subject line of the email, so it obviously has quite a bit to do with that.
True, but as we've heard from the attorney, this is, kind of carefully drafted if we don't have a reason to postpone it. If there's issues with noise, et cetera, that's kind of a broader issue that we can look at, especially with the airport and even flight schools, but that would be separate from a contract.
And if
Yes, Counselor.
If I may, if there are any, should the council choose to address noise ordinances, those would apply to every lessee and everyone on the airport in the future. And the question, sorry, Councilmember Best, you were asking if there was a lawsuit associated with this. There's none that I know of.
Okay, Councilman Alcantara.
Last thing, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
When our airport superintendent says would also support delaying action on this amendment in order to make a more informed decision, I take our professional staff at their suggestion and think delaying action to make a more informed decision makes sense. But I know it died a lack of seconds, so I'll let it drop and just vote no on it.
Deputy Mayor Anzalati, you almost pushed your button.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the purpose of the email was to make the difference between the two issues clear. That was my impression after talking to Mr. Diamante myself.
Okay. Madam Clerk, if you can.
Can I verify,
what is the motion?
Yeah, are we just voting?
This motion failed, so it's just.
Okay, so we're voting on the.
Yeah.
We're voting on whether to
On the
accept this
action.
contract change.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Mayor Carrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Moline.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anzalati.
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember Best.
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara.
No.
Councilmember Tudor.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, there's no unfinished business, no new business. Record of items placed on the table. Madam Clerk?
Documents from Lori Kopenberg and documents from Jack Bilford.
Okay. Next, we have audience participation, round 2. I think I read all the rules. So next, I think we have Colette Hand. Please start with your name and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Carrington and the board. My name is Colette Hand and I own the Peak Outpost in downtown Palmer, across from the Visitor Center. And I'm kind of talking about the parking, but I appreciate what everyone has already shared, and I'm against I'm glad you already turned down the thing you turned down just now. I didn't make any notes, but I want to say a couple of things about the Friday Fling. I'm sorry that it got delayed for a couple of weeks because of the event that I know that the Ale House had, and it caused the cars and all the things you guys already know. But what I want to bring up is something that I think, I also own a huge bed and breakfast that, like, if you were to go on The Price is Right or The Wheel of Fortune, you would win a trip to Alaska, you would be coming to my place. And I've been in business for 23 years, and I've been a member of all the things, so the CVB and the Chamber and all the things for all the years. But I've also helped many people become bed and breakfasts, and I don't look at it as competition. And I don't think that the Friday Fling needs to be a competition to the brick and mortars downtown. I think it's a very neat little town where we can all be together. And I own a store right on Colony Way, and I love Friday Fling, and I don't see it as a competition. And I love that, well, I think it brings business to all of us. So my opinion on the thing is we can bring business to each other. If Palmer Bar could put out a little few tables and chairs, and if I could put a pop-up tent and people get finished walking around over at the fling and they say, hey, what else is going on? We drove all the way from Anchorage and we brought our family. We're done walking and we went to the food booths. Now let's go check out what else Palmer has to offer. And Wasilla is not that town, and it can't be the town we can. And we love being that quaint, cool little town, and I don't ever want it to change. I raised my boys here and our family here, and I love what Palmer is. And I would love to have a barbecue place, but I don't want them to get an exemption on parking because I already don't have any parking in front of my building. But I think that things like the Ale House can have their events not on Friday, because a Friday Fling has been a 35 or 40-year tradition that I appreciate having, and I love to tell my tourists that come and stay at my bed and breakfast, hey, be sure you hit the Fling and go hit all the shops while you're downtown Palmer, and they do. And I see them come back to my house with their bags from all the shops in downtown Palmer, and I send people to Non-Essentials and to Poppy Lane and to Whimsy and everybody along the street. So to me, it's not a competition. We're in this cool little town, this community together, so I kind of get frustrated when I hear the brick and mortars mad about the Fling and the Fling getting canceled because of this or that. I think that we can all be this thing together, and I guess I just don't have a lot of input, except I want to quickly say, and I don't run out of time, but when I watch the news and I watch Anchorage have a big fuss about their thing in that Saturday market, and all those shops thought they were losing all this business, so they fought and they sent it out to the Diamond Center Mall, and then they couldn't have it, and then it became a ghost town in downtown Anchorage, and they fought to get them to come back. I don't want us to not learn from that. Let's don't send away our Fling and then have no, you know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, there you go.
That's your time.
I didn't take any notes, so there you have it.
Travis.
Hello, I'm Travis Friesen. I live in Palmer. I was going to talk about recycling for calling days, but I think I will save that for next year, in advance. But anyway, I will talk about the library and the parking. I'm glad that they changed the style of the library, but I think the presentation of the inside, what the library would look like inside, was not very clear, and plus they didn't really explain about how they're going to deal with the snow. It shouldn't be. I would prefer that it had a flat roof. No, not a flat roof, slope roof, so that the snow will fall down and we won't have to have the same issue that we had before with the old library, with all the snow caving in. And that's another thing. And also, as far as the parking, I have an idea to fix the parking. We could use some of the vacant lots. We could build a parking garage so that people can park their cars, and if they don't feel like walking, we could easily promote. People can rent bikes like they do in big cities. So that's an idea. So that way we can solve our parking space, all the parking issues in one parking garage, and everyone will be happy. So it's just an idea, a good way to use up the little bit of land that we have. Thank you. I'm out of here.
Thanks. Is there anyone else that didn't get a chance for audience participation? I think we've gone through the list, but there's still time.
My name is Frank Bell. Just wanted to say I really did like the design of the library. I think it's a great design. They did a pretty wonderful job of kind of creating that juxtaposition of the history of Palmer and a little bit more modern design aspects. I was slightly disappointed, of course, to see it come down from 20,000 to 18,000. But being the magnanimous gentleman that I am, I'm willing to let it go this one time for you guys. But that's because I think we all need to kind of take that mindset. We've spent a lot of time messing around with this library design plan. It's been a year and a half now, and we don't even have a final design for this library. And looking at the schedule, they've got it pegged for July of 2026 now for finishing, and
those of you that have spent any time in the construction world know that every schedule and every budget is a total optimistic fantasy at this point in any project. So I'd be very surprised if we weren't looking at minimum September 26, possibly into 27 for actual completion of that project, especially if we take more time to delay this design. So despite the fact that some of the children's section got cut by 300 square feet or whatever it is, which is kind of a big deal because that's a big part of the circulation for the library. That's my little thing that I'm hung up on, and I'm sure everybody has their little thing that they're hung up on. But the main concern and I think most people have with this library is that we'd like to set foot in it before we all die. So if we could just get the ball rolling, finalize this design, and get the process actually going to where we see some progress and have a realistic date for when this is going to get done. Because, my youngest daughter was born just before the roof collapsed. And at this point, she'll be, if not damn near in kindergarten by the time we have a library for her to go and visit. So I understand it's a process and you guys got to, dot the I's and cross the T's. But for God's sake, hurry up. That's my only message. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else for audience participation?
My name is Jennifer Williams. I do live in Palmer, and I just wanted to echo that and say that I was considerably more impressed with this design than the last one. I liked it. I thought they did a good job with not making it look like just a white box and so modern, but yet still reflecting Palmer's history. I liked it a lot, and I have had time to look at the inside, and I like that as well. So I'm just adding that, say this is much better. Again, yes, I agree. Please, let's get moving.
Anyone else? Hi, Wes.
I didn't sign in anywhere, so.
I'll sign you in.
Thank you. Wes with the Palmer Bar. Growing pains. I'm all for growth, but responsible growth. I want all the businesses in Palmer to be successful. I wish we could find a place for Bare Naked. The spot's just the wrong spot. That's the type of business we need to be growing, is places like that. But it's just the wrong spot. And then we got to see if we can find anything. If you know anyone, pass it on to go, hey, to look for good businesses like that. Some of the other things, we do have a major traffic and parking issue. And through the rumor mill, I heard the Friday Fling was shut down because of that, because of the traffic issues. We need to address that. The businesses that do have exemptions, I think that you guys should review those. I think it would be a good thing. The fact that something is growing so big, I want the ale house to do good. But the fact that an event is growing so big and affecting so many people in the community, and it needs to be addressed. I want them to go off. But main goal for everyone is we want to keep Palmer. On a little side note, when did one of the city parks actually become part of a private business? So that needs to be addressed also. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Last chance for audience participation. No, it's probably not legal, but you can stick around and talk to us afterwards.
Oh, I can't? Okay.
No.
So, yes, no?
Talk to us afterwards, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike Malewski, I spoke to you earlier during the earlier meeting, which no one else attended, but it was a great meeting. It was cool in here, everything was fine.
It was.
There are two things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to build upon what Wes has said, because we had a bit of a conversation before the meeting began Many of you know where I live. I live down near the three large churches, Log Church, which is the Presbyterian Church, Lutheran Church, and St. Michael's Catholic Church. Sometimes their lots, which are very large, overflow, and they overflow onto the street where I live. But also, I'm noticing more and more, and I think there's a change that's occurring that seems to be gradual, but it's becoming consistent, that there are cars parked down that street in front of our house. And I think it's one of those questions of be careful what you wish for. The L House is very successful. We can easily wander over and watch and listen to the music, and it's very successful. But it's almost as if it's too successful if you add in other events that are happening about the same time. You know, I know we're a small government focus, but at some point, the various permitting and organizing has to come in and say, okay, and it may be through parking. And maybe that's the guideline that makes that work. But I just wanted to throw in to say, I notice it, and I notice it getting increasingly more difficult. It used to be, you'd have a parade, yeah, a lot of people come down, they go away. But now it's extending and overlapping. The second thing I wanted to do was to follow up on Mr. Best's need for an RFP for the museum. I'm sure it's coming down the pike, right? We've mentioned this before, that it ends, their contract ends at the end of the year. It's now almost July. I'll keep coming back and asking, and hopefully at some point someone will say, oh yeah, we put it out on the street. If that's the intention, that's my understanding, that's the intention. Okay, so I just wanted to throw that in there again. And it's all because of Mr. Best, otherwise I wouldn't be up here talking. Thank you.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Carrington. I want to let you know you're going to have some pictures in your Dropbox. These were taken by Wes on last Friday evening, and you're going to see how the parking, so this is a crowd, it's the biggest crowd they've had, and like Mike said, you know, it has grown and it continues to grow. So when you go through it, you're going to see almost every single street in this area, including the depot, the library, all up and down, Dahlia, Elmwood, all of them are full. So I just wanted to give some context to these photos because there's nothing in them. But Wes took those on Friday night after the situation happened, and it just shows how parking does get out of control, and it bleeds over into the residential areas. And that happens because the Central Business District was expanded into the residential housing. And any big business right now can go in and create a high demand parking next to a small house. Could go right next to Mike's house, and he could have cars parked all over his place because that's what the Central Business District allows. I'm gonna work towards us reviewing that and ask planning and zoning to review it and see if we need to be within the residential district, because as a homeowner, I don't believe most people want that right next door to them. So anyway, I just wanted to give some context to these pictures. Wes took them. They're great photos of the situation and the success that they've had, but also how it can hamper just our life in downtown. Thank you.
All right. Did anyone not get a chance for audience participation? Okay. We'll close audience participation. Council comments. Councilman Cooper, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I'm going to be departing town tomorrow to go visit family, and I'll be back on the 8th of July, and then I'll be leaving again on the 12th. Just for the weekend and come back on the 16th.
Okay. Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's unfortunate that action tonight wasn't a business-friendly kind of action. I think all of us here want to see and love to hear people wanting to come in and businesses wanting to come into the city of Palmer. I for one actually have really enjoyed the food with the Bare Naked Barbecue folks. I've had it several times. I think a great barbecue place inside of Palmer would be wonderful. And what was stated earlier was just the wrong location. And I think that's the crux of this, that, you know, we could all just, you know, close our eyes and say, well, maybe all the rules need to go away, and maybe it's just based off of performance. But then now you're just setting everything up for litigation and enforcement. Then you have to have a traffic cop going around and making sure that that car doesn't sit there for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is that we determined is going to be the time frame. And then it becomes a much more of a headache. We are victims of our own success again. You know, it used to just be the colony days and colony Christmas that, you know, people were complaining about vehicles and traffic and parking. Now it's the everyday function that's going on. So again, it's just victims of our own success. So hopefully this is going to spark more conversation with more businesses, and I hope that the folks that are involved in this project right now, that they're not so discouraged that they just give up on it and throw their arms up in the air, because I think this is, there again, as one comment, that is a little bit of a slow process when you're working with government, and sometimes these projects that we all think could just be a real quick fix take time, and it takes consideration. It's because we have a very mindful and thoughtful community that are all invested in how we grow. So I'm sorry that the businesses are having to go through that and kind of the pains of it. And I don't see a fast solution, but hopefully it puts us in the right direction. And again, I appreciate them and other businesses trying to come into Palmer.
Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to thank Gary and Laura for coming by and doing the library presentation. I too wish it didn't have to be scaled back to 18,000 square feet, but I really appreciated their vision and their look back to the past. I can tell you, I've been in Palmer longer than anybody up here, I believe, and probably longer than most people in this audience, if not everybody. And some of those photos in the past, like DNA Supermarket, was my first actual tax-paying job back in the summer of 1980, when we actually paid state income tax and federal income tax. So the Palmer Ale House and their raging success in their summer concert series, part of that sometimes. That was last Friday, and I Like Robots, I think. But yeah, I agree with what my other council member Beth said, is that maybe a victim of their crazy success, because I'm not a huge Palmer Ale House fan as a place to go to lunch, but people want to go there. They want to sit on the outside. They want to do their thing. And I can tell you, yesterday at 1:30 in the afternoon, thinking like, hey, it's 1:30 in the afternoon. How bad can it be? 40-minute wait to get seated. So it isn't just Friday and Saturday night concerts. It's the go-to place. No offense to anybody else that's had business here for a long time, but it's just kind of become a go-to place. But I feel that for Mr. Vincent, any project that he wanted to do, whether it was this great barbecue restaurant idea or a mortuary, you still got to adhere to what's in the code. And ironically, a mortuary is the same as a restaurant. Every 5 seats, you got to have a parking spot. So, I mean, the reality is, take a look at it, figure out next steps, and I hope to see the restaurant in some, you know, maybe scaled back version or a version that includes paving parking spots and making some parking spots. So I think everybody did a great job testifying tonight, and enjoy the rest of this wonderful evening. Thank you.
Councilman Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to appreciate the other council members for summarizing things so well. I'm here to talk about the issues with the Chamber of Commerce and Friday Flings. These events have been plagued by a lack of support from the city. Case in point, the Chamber of Commerce has asked to use the city barricades, and we're told no. So they've had to use traffic cones, which has resulted in their staff being almost hit by vehicles multiple times not just once, but multiple times. They're out there without support from the city, even though other events get those barricades. On Friday, this happened again, and a staff was almost hit. They called the Palmer police. No officer ever showed up. One of the staff was then harassed. No support. This is beyond frustrating to me. These events like Colony Days and Friday Flings, these are put on by other organizations outside of the city, and we need to support these organizations. We need to provide support as a city to make sure there's safety protocols followed, to make sure things are done on as a standardized process. So I'm asking for support that as a city, we direct the city manager to change our policy for street closures. So when someone gets permission to close a street, they get that permit that includes the use of city barricades, those wooden barricades that we have, and that the city puts them up and takes them down. I think this is critical for safety. It's a liability issue for our city, and it's something that we need to do to protect these events and the staff members working there and the people at these events.
I support that, Mr. Mayor. I support that.
And if I get another one, this is another one. I believe that we also should have the option that when these are done, to also have these vendors be able to have police assistance. I understand this may be additional tier or something, but we need something because a lot of these events, even with barricades, a lot of times drivers are moving them and they're parking inside the events. It's happened during Colony Days. People move the barricades to park inside Colony Days. So we need some enforcement to make sure that there is assistance for these groups for their safety. Otherwise, we are going to lose these events that we hold so dear. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to declare that actually out of order. Our manager found out about this stuff yesterday. We have a manager form of government. We need to respect that process. Now, I mean, we can ask the manager to come back with us of how she's working on this and changing it.
Okay,
but
that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
I mean, and then if we come up with a policy change that's specific, we can vote on that.
Okay,
but,
I totally respect that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that our interim manager has a chance.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to throw anyone on the bus. I'm just seeing a policy issue where we're applying rules to some people but not to others, and I want to make sure that we have standardization. And so, if I could please, just have that done. I just want to make sure that things get better.
All right, Councilwoman Moline, comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, thank you everyone for coming out. Linda, it is fabulous to see you sitting here, and to Janet and the team there. I think you guys thank you very much for coming out. There's a lot of passion here, and again, we are not in the business of not allowing businesses to grow. That's not what we want. But Palmer is a very special place, and quite some time ago, and again, because I am getting ready to exit my term, my seat is up here at this next election. I just want to remind our fellow council members, as well as the community, that your council people are fighting for you 100%. They go through a lot of tough phone calls, and sometimes it's vitriolic, sometimes it's productive, but they hear you, and they deal with all of the parking issues and the growth, the library and the timelines, and we are fighting for you. And so I just would ask that that there is grace given to your council members, but use them. Keep calling them, because that's where you get action. The other thing that I would say is that I too am very concerned about our relationships with the chamber, as well as other organizations in town, and these events that we are so lucky to have people that want to come to Palmer and have events here. That's a great thing. But if we don't grow very carefully Because like it or not, it's coming. We are growing. The trajectory of growth for the valley is insane. I think we can all agree upon that. But if we are not careful, we will blow Palmer out, and that includes parking. So we've actually have been fighting for parking, to have a new parking plan for quite some time. It just was never addressed, and that's disappointing. That, you know, we tried to get out in front of this and it just wasn't resonating, and now it is, and it's unfortunate. There were events that took place, as well as a business that has to suffer because of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes up with this initiative or this direction to P&Z, and as well as the council to roll back some of these waivers. Other than that, I just, it's safety first. I never want to hear that we might not have a response from our police officers. I know that that's a concern. That's the third time I've heard this. I haven't had an opportunity to talk with the chief, but I will be. And I just would ask that there's a lot of vitriol and a lot of comments going on online on, you know, certain sites, that everybody thinks they know what's going on, and they don't. So I would ask that all it takes is 5 minutes. 5 minutes, I picked up the phone and I called the president of the chamber and I said, what is going on? You can do that too, and you can find out what's actually happening rather than getting online and causing chaos in town. So that's not a lecture, that's just some friendly advice. So, happy summer, y'all. And thank you.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think everything has been pretty well addressed by the other members of the council. So I would like to, and I'm not sure exactly how to voice this best, so feel free to help me out, Mr. Mayor. I would like to ask for council support to have Public Works look into finding a solution to the fireweed railroad crossing and coming up with a solution that's a welcome step forward, because I know that's a very touchy subject, a very sentimental project with the railroad being involved. So I'm not sure if
I'm not sure either. We can direct our manager to work this out, and maybe you can speak with her at more length.
All right.
To whether it would be a resolution or I'm not sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And I would want to remind people that we actually have a structure. We are a manager form of government. The public works guy, the police chief, the fire chief all work for the city manager. And please respect that protocol. We're adjourned.